Now, as you've been hearing, the two main candidates vying to be the next Vice President of the United States have gone head-to-head in their only televised debate before November's presidential election. In a debate lasting just over an hour and 40 minutes, Ohio Senator JD Vance and Minnesota Governor Tim Walz sparred over key issues such as abortion, the economy and immigration. On immigration, JD Vance accused Kamala Harris of opening the floodgates of illegal migration by undoing the work he says Donald Trump did during his term.
Kamala Harris went out bragging that she was going to undo Donald Trump's border policy. She did exactly that. We had a record number of illegal crossings. We had a record number of fentanyl coming into our country. And now that she's running for president, or a few months before, she says that somehow she got religion and cared a lot about a piece of legislation. The only thing that she did when she became the vice president, when she became the appointed border czar, was to undo 94 Donald Trump executive actions that opened the border. This problem is leading to massive problems in the United States of America.
Well, Governor Walz accused Donald Trump of tanking a bipartisan border security bill earlier this year, saying the former president did so for political reasons. He also argued Mr. Trump failed at immigration policy in his first term.
He had 4 years to do this, and he promised you, America, how easy it would be. I'll build you a big, beautiful wall, and Mexico will pay for it. Less than 2% of that wall got built, and Mexico didn't pay a dime. But here we are again, 9 years after he came down that escalator, dehumanizing people and telling them what he was going to do. As far as the deportation plan, at one point, Senator Vance said it was so unworkable to be laughable. So that's where we're at. Pass the bill, she'll sign it.
So that gives you a taste of the debate. Let's join my colleague, Katrina Perry, who is right there where it's all going on. So, Katrina, it was quite civilized and restrained in many ways. Talk us through this debate.
It really was quite an amicable exchange between these two men, scenes that we would have been used to in days gone by at vice presidential and presidential debates, but not the scenes that we've become used to in this ever-polarized world of US politics that we've seen in recent times. Both men agreeing with each other, nodding along when they were on the split screen and one or other was speaking and saying, I agree with the governor or I agree with the senator. That's not to say, though, that there weren't very sparky exchanges. You played a couple of clips there earlier, and the economy, immigration, abortion, all of those standard hot-button issues for voters here in America were where both of these men clashed. Interestingly, a poll done by our editorial partners here at CBS in advance of tonight found that most voters were going to tune in and watch to find out more about these two men, that they're not familiar with them. People who aren't political anoraks would not necessarily have come across them. JD Vance, in his very first answer, which was about Israel and Iran, said, hold on, I'll get to that in a minute, but let me introduce myself to the American people, and spoke about his background. And so he was probably a little more polished in terms of achieving that goal. For Tim Walz, it took him a little longer to essentially warm up to the first few questions on Israel, Iran, on climate change. He was a little slower in his responses. But when it got into those issues, particularly those issues that are really big issues in his own state of Minnesota, immigration and economy, housing, healthcare, women's rights, he really was quite passionate then, and that's when we saw the most sparkiest exchanges between both of these individuals.
And what's the reaction been so far to this debate?
Well, here in the spin room, it's full. People are just wrapping up now behind me, but it's been full of surrogates from both campaigns, each claiming victory, as you can imagine. That's what spin doctors and supporters do, of course. But people are remarking on how, as we've said, how sort of friendly the tone was here, how JD Vance was setting out to, normalise in many ways some of the points of the Donald Trump agenda to that middle of the road, perhaps undecided audience. There's only 5 or 10% of them, if even, who still haven't made up their mind who they're going to vote for in November. And for Tim Walz, his goal was to essentially defend Kamala Harris and Joe Biden's record. And we saw time and again JD Vance come back and say to Tim Walz, well, you're pledging all these great things, but Kamala Harris has had the opportunity to do that for 3.5 years, and she hasn't. and Tim Walz replying that, well, Donald Trump had also the opportunity in office. So a very unusual set of circumstances in many ways tonight. But do vice presidential debates shift the dial? Who knows? We'll have to wait a few days on the poll, but it's business as usual for the campaigns, hitting the campaign trail again tomorrow.